All right, just getting set up real quick. I think everything's good to go now. So what's going on, guys? Happy Sunday. Today we're going to be talking about design research as an iOS developer. And I'm not going to be like actually building designs right now. I'm going to kind of talk about my flow, my process, what I do to kind of get inspiration, where I find ideas for design, and then I turn around and design those in Sketch. So I'm kind of waiting for more people to get in before I really dive in. So I'll go ahead and say what's up to some people. So what's going on, Daniel, Genghis Khan? Good to see you guys again. Dilip, you're here all the time. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Georgios, good to see you. Techie says, yep, my problem equals design research. So that's good. Hopefully this video is going to help you out. Yep, a lot of people seem to like this topic. So I asked about this last week, and a lot of people like the design stuff. So there's two phases in the design stuff that I'm probably going to do. This one is more the research stuff, and then I'm probably going to do like a Sketch thing where I like actually design a screen in Sketch live while you guys watch me. Live design hopefully is a little easier than live coding. Last week was live coding that went so-so. So okay, looks like we got a decent amount of people in here now. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into the topic, which again is design research. But to start off, let me give you a little story about how I became the designer at my first startup. So for those of you that don't know, I've been an iOS developer for about 2.5 years now, going on 3 years. Time flies very quickly. My very first startup job was back in November of 2015. And what happened was when I first got there, like literally my very first week there, we were building the app. And I saw the designer we were working with. We hadn't started building the designs yet. And long story short, it wasn't one designer. It was like a design firm. But basically, like, I really didn't like the design and thought it was very, very poor. And here I am, my first week in my first ever dev job. I didn't really know what to do. So my first weekend, I went home, and instead of just complaining about the design, I was like, you know what? Let me just redesign this entire app in Sketch over the weekend and show them like what I think could be better. I wasn't trying to become the designer. I just wanted to show that like, hey, look, I'm not even a designer, and I whipped this up in a weekend, and it's much better than what we're working with here. And the reason I did that was because, to be honest with you, I didn't want to work on an app that I was like embarrassed to show off. So long story short, I redesigned the app over the weekend in Sketch, and then bring it back to my VP of software. He sees, he's like, wow, this is pretty good. He shows the CEO. That day, they're like, okay, Sean, you're our designer now. And I was like, that's not really the point I was going for, but I guess I'm the designer now. So that's how I became the designer at my first startup, as well as an iOS developer. So I was wearing both hats. I was doing both jobs, which was good and bad. It was good because I got to, when you're the designer and the developer, there's no drop off from going from design to development. And a lot of times if I wanted to tweak the design, I could just do it right in development. I didn't have to go, design it, get it all perfect and stuff. The bad side was I spent 50% of my time as a designer and 50% of my time as a developer. So my learning, my growth as a developer was slow because I was spending half my time designing. That being said, I'm glad I did it because now I feel like I have a pretty good design base and design background. Again, by no means am I claiming to be a professional designer. Not at all. But I do have enough experience in it that I feel like as a developer, I have very good design skills for a developer. We'll put it that way. But I'm not a professional designer. All right, so let's kind of talk about what I do and how I get my inspiration for designs when I was doing it. So there's let me kind of check my notes, make sure I didn't skip anything. Yeah, so there's, first of all, what I'm about to show you, there are probably many, many other websites, many other newsletters, many other ways to research design. By no means am I saying this is everything on the internet, obviously. This is just what I used to help me out. So there's kind of two categories I put these in. Some is passive research, which means like that's like signing up for an email newsletter where they will email you the design ideas, right? So that's passive, and that's kind of what I still do to this day because, like I said, when I was full-time designing for 1.5 years at my startup, I was very active. I was like half my time was researching designs. Whereas now, when I'm just a contractor and all the projects I'm working on have designers attached to them, so I just get designs now. I don't actually do the designs. But the first 1.5 years of my 2.5-year career, I was a designer. So anyway, so now I just do the passive stuff, which is basically the stuff that comes into my inbox. I open the email, scroll through it. We're going to go through that in a second. But then the second category is active, like when you actively want to research stuff, like what site do you go to, what Medium post do you go to, and stuff like that. So we're going to kind of touch on both of those. So let's start with the passive stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up some screens here. And like I said, most of the passive stuff is just email newsletters that I'm a part of. So let me kind of pull up my first email here, and I'm going to go away. You're going to see the email. So this is iOS Dev Weekly. First of all, this is a developer newsletter. It's not a design-specific newsletter. However, they do have a design section, which we're going to see here in a second. One second. They do have a design section. If you scroll down, there's always a design section here. So you should be signed up for this newsletter anyway. Just Google iOS Dev Weekly, and you'll see it. And definitely sign up even as a developer. But they do have design stuff. So here you can see it's like design details, drag and drop, using psychology to design your project. This is just a good newsletter overall. But it's not design specific. I wanted to start with this one because it's kind of again, it's not design specific. But let's go ahead and get to some of the actual design-specific ones. So let's get rid of this one. This email is called UI Interactions Weekly or something like that, or UI Movement, I believe is the website. This one's really cool. So let me actually, hold on. I had all these windows set up. All right. So this one's cool because you can see like actually animated images of the design interaction. I don't know. I guess this is a fitness app. We're seeing some ads there. But you can see here's a furniture app on the iPhone X. Like I said, this is just for inspiration. So the whole point of this inspiration is you take a little bit of this, you take a little bit of that. I'm not saying to copy these screens exactly, but it's like, oh, hey, cool, that's a pretty cool slider. You know, maybe I'll implement that slider into my app. Stuff like that. And what I typically do is I usually have a folder on my desktop that if I see a design I like or just some inspiration, because as you see, I'm going to scroll through like hundreds of designs, and I'm not going to like every single one. But as I see one that I like, I go ahead and like right-click it, save as, and I have this folder on my desktop of nothing but like my favorite designs. So when it comes time to actually, yeah, Neil, we're actually going to get to that one. When it comes to my actual designs, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. I have this folder of just my favorite designs, and I'm good to go. So definitely sign up for UI Movement. Just Google UI Movement. You'll probably find it. It's a website, and then there's a newsletter you can sign up to. And again, this is just the passive stuff. Like I'm not actively researching, design right now, but I still get this on my email every week just to stay up to date with the latest and greatest in designs. So the last email I want to touch on is the Envision email. Keep doing this. So for those of you that don't know, Envision is a prototyping website where designers will import their designs into Envision, and you can kind of have this online prototype of an actual app. Not an actual app, but you can kind of get the feel for what your app would feel like just based on designs. I highly recommend signing up for their newsletter. Again, just go to envision.com. You can sign up for their newsletter. But again, you'll get this every week. And well, not all of these are design stuff, but your guide to design systems. This is just the latest one. So like how a lone designer excited the world with the Tesla UI. So this is all about the Tesla UI stuff. So it's just a great way to stay up to date on what's going on in the design world and to see what some of the biggest apps and biggest companies are doing with design. And again, just inspiration. That's really the name of the game. Have you ever heard the term like, the best artists steal or something like that? I probably messed that up. But there is a saying like that artists, steal stuff. And like I said, I'm not saying to copy these screens exactly, but, an animation here, a certain interaction there, you can definitely use. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. So now that's, again, the passive stuff I was talking about. Again, that just comes into my email every week, and I just check it, and I stay up to date. We'll get into active in a second, but the last passive thing I want to talk about is to always download and stay up to date on the latest apps that are kind of known for design. Airbnb is my perfect example. I don't use Airbnb. I just don't travel that much. But Airbnb is like one of the main apps I always check on my phone because they're known for the design. I really love the design of their app, and they're updating it all the time. So I'm constantly checking it to stay up to date with what the biggest and best apps are doing. Things like Instagram, Twitter just went through a redesign. Instagram did their redesign like over a year ago, but that was a big deal when it happened. So even if you don't use the apps, you kind of get to know the apps that are known for like great design. That way if these were what the biggest and best apps in the entire world are doing, it's probably a good idea to kind of take some inspiration from them for your own apps and to stay on the cutting edge of design. A lot of times, so in my coaching or answering a bunch of questions online and email through this YouTube channel, I see a lot of people's UIs, and I know iOS developers aren't supposed to be designers, so I don't like knock them too much for it, but you can definitely tell there's a lot of like out of date, pretty bad designs that I see pretty much on a daily basis. So that's another reason for this video is I want to start getting people out there, getting on these newsletters. We're going to hit up some websites in a minute like Dribbble, Muzli, but I want people to get out there and start doing that so just your overall design improves, because yes, as developers, we want to make sure our code works and we want to make sure our coding's right. But at the end of the day, like, first impression matters. If someone opens up your app and it looks like crap, and like they're just going to judge you immediately on that. And I'm not saying that's fair or that's right, but that's just the truth. I know a lot of people, if you're like applying for jobs and you do a take-home project, you get some code, you think you're going to be judged on the code, and that's pretty much what you're worried about. You don't even really care about the UI. But at the same time, if when they first open up your take-home project and the UI like blows them away, like that shows that you have attention to detail. That shows that you know how to make a good UI. To me, that is a big, big plus in your column if you're looking for jobs on the interview. So I'm probably biased. I love design, so I think design is very, very important. And I know a lot of developers and coders kind of just shove that off to the side and say, that's the designer's problem. That's not my problem. But if you're an indie developer or a small-time contractor, you may be asked to do a lot of design. So now that we've talked about the passive stuff, let's kind of get to the active stuff that I did. And again, I'm going to catch up on the comments in a little bit, so keep asking questions. After my websites, I'm going to get to that. But like I said, I know there's tons of other websites that I'm not going to cover. This is just what I did and what I'm familiar with. So the other thing that I did was, let me pull up Dribbble here. Many of you guys are probably familiar with Dribbble. Dribbble with 3 B's. Nice and unique. So basically, Dribbble is not all UI specific for mobile. This is pretty much all design, as you can see as I'm scrolling. So there's a cool little Super Nintendo right there. But it's cool just to get, so there's kind of 2 things I look for when I'm doing active research. Sometimes I'm just looking for what I call like look and feel inspiration, right? Like just how an app feels and how an app looks. Like you don't have to look at a specific UI to kind of get that feel. Like for example, this nasty thing that has a certain feel to it, whereas this Super Nintendo has a completely different feel to it. So a lot of times I use Dribbble to kind of just get inspiration for the feel. And I just kind of scroll through and look at stuff just for that. However, if I am looking for something specific, like let's say I'm building a login screen, and I'm like, you know what, I just want inspiration for how I build login screens. So Dribbble has a search feature. I'll just type, login, hit enter, and then now, I mean, these aren't all going to be login screens because search isn't perfect all the time. But I'll scroll through and kind of start looking at some cool login screens that I think I might like. Like this one looks kind of cool. So yeah, so you can see there's just one type of login screen, and if I like it, again, I'll just right-click, save as, save it to my folder, keep scrolling, and I'll do this for like an hour. Just literally scroll through 50 pages of Dribbble login screens just to kind of find like all the ones I want. Like this one looks kind of cool. It's kind of got a darker feel to it, obviously. So again, you just get all these different ideas on how to just build a login screen, and you can do all kinds of different stuff. Like I'm actually having to build, or at my previous job, I had to build like a chart or a graph. So I would just type in graph. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but you get kind of all these different ideas on like mobile app graphs and how to visualize data in your app. And again, I would right click, save as, and pretty much at the end of the day, I would just have this like crazy long list of images in this folder of designs I like. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I would just take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, and kind of come up with my own feel and my own style for that design. So that's kind of how I use Dribbble. Again, 2 ways, just to get the look and feel inspiration, and then also if I needed specific UI, I could type that into the search bar, and here's kind of more graph stuff, and kind of get kind of what I was looking for, for that specific UI that I was looking for. All right, and the next thing I go to is it's a Medium page, and I think Neil Williams already mentioned this, but it's called Muzli on Medium. Definitely follow them. Highly recommended. They do a bunch of different articles. So if you're a Sketch user, once you start designing your UI, I imagine you'll become pretty big into Sketch. I love Sketch. Sketch is awesome. I cringe. Like for example, my latest contract. My designs came in through Photoshop, and I just cringe, because to me it's like so much more cumbersome to use Photoshop and pull out assets from Photoshop than it is for Sketch. So if you're not familiar with Sketch, go ahead and download it. There's a 30-day free trial. It does cost money after the 30-day free trial, but highly recommended. So anyway, Muzli is a good go-to for designers. You want 40 powerful plugins for Sketch, but there's 2 main posts that I follow on Muzli. We'll see if we can get to one here. Yeah, so weekly inspiration for designers. And again, back to what I said with Dribbble. This is more of the look and feel type designs. So, these are going to be like websites. These aren't going to be mobile apps. We'll get to that mobile apps next. But again, this is more for like look and feel of an app. Like here's a good like black and white feel with some light color accents. That looks pretty cool. So again, not all of these are going to be UI, as we'll get to. This isn't UI obviously, but it's just good, interesting. Some 8-bit 80s wrestling. I like that. So like I said, this is just more inspiration for look and feel. And again, they do these posts every week. So if I go back to their main page, you'll see if I scroll down like super fast, like weekly inspiration number 124, right? Like they've done 124 of these posts. So you can go back in time. You could probably spend like a whole day on their Medium page and just get crazy design inspiration. So again, the weekly inspiration is what I use for kind of what it says, just design inspiration. And then down here, there it is. So UI interactions of the week. Again, they've done 95 of these, so you can go back and read all 95 posts if you want, which I actually would recommend if you're really serious about designing your app. So this is probably my favorite post because this is, like I said, specifically for Kilo. I actually use Pinterest too. I actually forgot to put that on this list. I forgot I even did that until you just posted that. I would do I think there's like a UI UX design board on Pinterest that I would follow, and there's a ton of stuff on there too. So like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. Please feel free in the comments or the chat. Definitely, post some suggestions because there's tons and tons of stuff out there. So anyway, let's click on UI interactions of the week. And you just see some cool, and most of them are like animated, as you can see here. So, get some cool animations. I mean, I'm not gonna, let's kind of scroll through all of them. Why not? Cool menu drop down. Again, more data and graphs. This is more like a website or a Mac app kind of UI. I actually like this onboarding. It's pretty cool, interesting, right? So the window, you're used to onboarding the whole screen swiping. Well, you can see the window staying still and just the background, like you're looking through the window is changing. So that's a pretty cool idea. And I would have never thought of that unless, I'm scrolling through this website. That's a pretty crazy transition. So watch this transition, from the, whatever that is, collection view into a table view. That's pretty sweet. I think there's some iPhone X designs down here. Yeah, so you can start to see how people are designing for the iPhone X, and how that transition filled up these little ears up here. That's pretty cool. So yeah, like I said, this is pretty much just what I do. I spend pretty much an entire day, which was kind of cool when you were the designer at a startup. I just got to sit there and look at cool designs and say I was researching. I mean, I really was though, because I was designing the app, so I was trying to come up with all this really, really cool stuff. So that's pretty much what I do. Again, the passive is the emails, which I still do to this day. I don't really do this active stuff much anymore because I'm so busy. Like you guys know, I'm on 4 contracts at the moment, and they all already have designers, and I just get designs. So I'm not really actively designing anything, but when I am, this is what I do. And then here's another cool. This one actually came from a one of the newsletters. I can't remember which newsletter. I signed up for 6 iOS newsletters, iOS development Swift newsletters, which I would recommend you guys do too. That's a completely different topic, but a lot of them do have design sections, and this was on there, and I thought this was pretty cool. So I've never heard of UpLabs, and I don't follow them. Maybe I will start following them. But this is the best iOS design in September 2017. So naturally, they probably do this every month. So this would be a good thing to keep up on. And again, it's just kind of the latest and greatest in design. And you'll start to see trends too, which let's kind of scroll down to what I saw. Well, actually, let's stop here. So back to the look and feel. I really like the look and feel of this app, even though this is a fitness app. My whatever app I'm working on might not be a fitness app, but I just like this, minimalist kind of. It's white, light blue accents. I don't know. I just like the way this app feels, and I'll kind of translate that into an app I use. One thing I wanted to talk about is that if you do this enough, you're going to start seeing trends. And it's an interesting thought. I want to kind of get to the screen where I saw it here. Yeah, right here. So this cartoony style of art to me is like crazy played out. You know, like I said, I've been searching this stuff since 2015, and I've seen this art style so many times. To me, it looks old, it looks dated. So there's good and bad to that, right? So the first thing I want to say is good is like you are up to date with the trends in design, right? You know that this is a trend, everybody's doing it. You know, it's going to be played out. Your users probably are going to have seen this before. At the same time, it's bad because yes, you've seen this art style 1,000 times, but you know, your customers or the people who download your app, they're not searching for design like you are, so they may have never seen it. So you can get a little biased, and your opinion can get skewed when you get real deep into this, you know, design world if you start seeing the same stuff. So just kind of be careful with that, because like I said, to me this looks old and dated. I would never design an app like this because it looks a couple years old. It looks like it's from like 2014 to me. But again, my customers may have never seen this design. It may look super cool to them. So just got to be careful with that. But yeah, just more, I'll kind of, after I scroll through this, I'm going to catch up on the Q&As here. So yeah, that is basically what I do. And like I said, during the first year and a half of my career, I was spending half my time designing, to where I was doing this every day. Like, you know, just scrolling through Dribbble, scrolling through Muzli, all those newsletters. But now that I'm just pretty much a coder, I don't do that so much anymore. I just rely on the passive email stuff, which I think is good because it keeps me up to date on what's going on. So that's the gist of the design. If you joined in late, go ahead and watch the replay when it comes out. I talk about the design in the beginning. Now I'm going to catch up on the chat, do some Q&A. I'll catch up on the chat, so start asking some questions, and then I got some other updates to give, and then I'll do another like Q&A session. So let's go ahead and scroll back up through the chat here. Get through all the pleasantries. Raphael, hey man, Brazil, what's going on, Raphael? Wesley, good to see you again from the Netherlands. Loyal patron, yep, I saw you sign up. I appreciate the support, Wesley. Good segue into the Patreon community. So I can talk about that for like 30 seconds. Basically, if you're not familiar, I do have a Patreon community where we have a Slack channel. I also post like weekly updates on what's going on in my my contracting world. But I think the majority of the value from the from the Patreon community comes from the Slack community. There's probably about 40 or 50, there are probably about 30 to 40 developers in the Slack community, and we're constantly chatting all day, every day, all night, because it's people from around the world, so time zones don't matter. But yeah, we're posting, what we're working on. We're helping each other out with some code. If you are, learning on your own, I would highly recommend joining Patreon, and then, from there you get an invite to the Slack community. And I do want to preface this with the reason I only keep it to my Patreon community is because that's a smaller community. Because I've seen with Slack channels, once you get to a crazy number of people, like if I just opened it up to everybody, like, hey, just email me, I'll give you an invite. There might be 1,000 people in there, and then the trying to keep up with a conversation would be like impossible. So I'm intentionally trying to keep the numbers low, which is why I limited it to the Patreon community. So if you're interested in that, go to patreon.com/Sean Allen. There's different tiers you can sign up for. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or hit me up on Twitter. So that's the Patreon plug. Appreciate the good segue there, Wesley. All right, so Sankit says, maybe we know how much salary you got at your first startup. Sure, I made 60 grand, but that was below minimum wage here in Silicon Valley. I'll tell you why I took that, and I'm going to do eventually a whole video about my salary history. If you've seen Let's Build That App, Brian Bong, he did a video on that, and it's his most popular video, and it's super interesting. People want to know that stuff. So I don't feel like I have enough history yet. I just had my first startup job and then my contracting. So I'll probably wait until I get, I'll have the startup job, the contracting, and then my next job at hopefully a major company. Then I can probably do that. So that's coming soon. But the reason I only took 60 grand at the first startup job, and because I was well below average, was because I had no leverage, right? I was fresh out of a boot camp. My first developer job, no experience. I had just started learning Swift a couple months earlier, so they took a chance on me because they liked me, quite frankly. They knew I didn't really know anything about development, but they liked me. They knew I would work hard, so they took a chance on me. And that's why I kind of was like, okay, I'll take this low salary, take the first 6 months to prove myself, which I did. And, within, when did I get the raise? May. So about 5 months later, I got a raise up to 100. So I went from 60 to 100 within the first 5 months because I proved myself at that. So I guess the moral of that story is your initial salary as your very first job, don't be afraid to like take something low, because if you're confident in your abilities, you're going to prove yourself, and then you can ask for a raise. And if they don't give you a raise, then you'll have learned some stuff, and maybe you go to a different job. I don't know. Now we're getting out of it, but the point is, when you don't have any leverage, you have no experience, you're just learning, you may have to take a lower salary. But a lot of people don't like to hear that. But that's what I did, and it's worked out great. So anyway, that's kind of the first salary. Yeah, Dark Innocence, so they fired the former one. Yeah, basically. Again, it wasn't like one person. It was a design firm, and they had kind of been having issues with them anyway. It wasn't like it was a great relationship, and I just came in and stole it. Like, there had been other issues, and the design wasn't that great. So all that, like, basically me providing better designs was kind of just like the last nail in the coffin, so to speak, to end that relationship. Kirti says, hey, Sean, what motivated you to take a break and learn coding? Basically, I kind of fell in love with coding. My story, and I told this before, so I'll give a real quick version of it. Basically, I was at my very first startup, not the one I've just been talking about, where I wasn't a developer. I was like sales, growth, marketing. And I started building websites on the side for the company, just static marketing websites, landing pages, if you will. And I kind of fell in love with coding there. And then, living in Silicon Valley, you kind of, the coders are the rock stars here, basically. And you see how much they get paid. You see how companies just fall over them, and they want the best developers. Like, they're highly desired. So the combination of me falling in love with coding with seeing how desired, good developers were, that was just the perfect storm. And I was like, yep, I'm switching. So that's why I did it. Sorry, my chat keeps scrolling down. All right. So, yep. Nyat, what's going on? Kilo, good to see you again. Kilo, I want to check out one of your live streams soon. I haven't. As you know, I'm crazy busy. I saw you ask a question on Twitter about, does anybody watch their own content back? I used to all the time. Now I don't. Like, I used to rewatch my live streams to make sure I didn't say anything stupid or try to improve, almost like sports, like watching film. Like, okay, I messed that up. How can I fix that for the next live stream? How can I get better? Because I'm still fairly new at this. Well, maybe not anymore. This is probably like my 20th live stream. But so yeah, I used to watch it, but now I don't have time to even watch my own, let alone other people's live streams. Like, I used to watch Brian's live stream every week. I haven't watched that in a while. It's just with all these contracts, which is good. I'm not complaining. Like, it's a lot of work. I have a lot of work coming in, and that's awesome. But I just have no time to consume other content. But I do want to check out one of your live streams soon. Neo, Muzli on Medium is awesome. Yep, I touched on that, obviously. Dejavik says, hi, I wanted to ask you a question. Recently finished my university and got a job 3 months ago. My question is, what is the best time in my situation to start going freelance? I would start going freelance whenever you think you're comfortable building an app on your own. That's the big thing about freelancing or contracting, is this is 100% on you. I don't know about your job situation, but a lot of times you're on an iOS team or a software team where you can go to other developers for help, or you're not building the entire app. That's a completely different animal to when every single aspect of the app, maybe not designs or whatever, but building the app is 100% on you. So whenever you think you're comfortable that, hey, I could build an app 100% by myself, then I would start testing the waters, but I wouldn't quit your job and go freelance. I would do freelancing on the side. That's what I did. I freelanced on the side for a year before I made the jump to full-time. And like I mentioned before, the jump to full-time was even kind of by accident. It's because basically I didn't get the jobs I wanted here in the interview process, and I kind of picked up contracts during my interviewing, and I picked up enough contracts where I was like, oh, let me try doing this full-time because I had enough work. So definitely don't just quit without contracts. Have some contracts lined up and some experience contracting lined up before you make the switch. Techie101 says, so is animation included in design? No. Animation is on you, the developer, to animate, which is another interesting thing because it's good when you can work with your designer. Like, the contracts I'm on right now, I don't get to work with the designer. I just basically get final designs, and I'm just got to build it. A lot of times it's good when you can work with a designer because they may design this crazy UI or this crazy animation, and you just need to be like, look, dude, that's going to take 3 days to build. Do you really need this animation? Because a lot of times in contracting, you're on a certain hour limit. So you have to kind of make sure you're putting your resources in the right place. Hey, we only have 100 hours on this project. Do we want to spend 15 of those on this animation? Is that, we're not going to get the rest of the app built. So no, animation is not included. And sometimes you got to reel your designer in, because sometimes they design something, especially if the designer has no experience with development, they can just go crazy and you just be like, dude, that's going to take forever to build. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Rashad says, isn't the job of a UI/UX designer to tell how the design interaction should be? Yes. I'm not sure if I said something otherwise. Maybe you can clarify where this question came from. But yes, the job of the UI/UX designer is to basically say, here's the design, here's how the app should flow, here's how the animations, here's what should happen here. Yeah, there it is, yo. Good artist copy, great artist steal. That's what I was looking for. Neil Williams says UI interactions of the week is awesome. Yep, that's what I kind of went over. I think I saw in the chat you said this before I started going over it, so I won't steal your thunder there. Yep, I touched on Kilo's Pinterest comments. Techstar says he subbed. Thanks for the sub, Techstar. Much appreciated. XICO says, could you share the newsletter you follow, please? Yeah, I do plan on doing a video on this later. But the newsletters I follow are, sometimes I can't remember the name of the actual newsletter. I just know the name of the person that does it. So iOS Dev Weekly is the one I showed. Again, just Google iOS Dev Weekly. Swift Weekly Brief, which is by Jesse Squires. That is to kind of keep up with like what's actually going on in the Swift language. So that's probably that's an advanced newsletter, I would say. Natasha the Robot's newsletter, I can't remember the name of it. Just Google Natasha the Robot. You'll go to her blog and then you'll go to her newsletter. That's a good one. There's like Indie Dev Weekly, I think. You can just Google these. Yeah, that's all I can remember off the top of my head. But I do plan on doing like a pretty detailed video on that eventually. I mean, my video to-do list is so long. Techie 101, how do you get your assets created? So this is a tricky thing too. If you're good with Sketch, you can make your own like icons and stuff in Vector. That's a skill I'm not quite good at, but I want to get good at. There's a cool Twitter handle. I can't remember his name. But he does like speed runs in creating like icons, and he'll create like an icon in like 30 seconds, and he'll just put the GIF on Twitter, and so he'll create like a cloud icon or whatever that you would see in an app, and it's cool how he does it. Anyway, long story short, you can make them in Sketch, or there's sites like Icons 8 or the Noun Project where you can get some icons and some assets. Yeah, the term assets is pretty general, so I obviously went down the icon route. But if you're talking like background images, animations, like that, I mean, I'm not exactly sure where to get all those. Neil says, do you have any animation videos planned? I know you did some basic ones before, but it would be cool to see some more advanced material. Yeah, I mean, like I just mentioned, I have so many videos planned. And as you guys may have noticed, the videos have slowed down. It's because I'm doing 50 hours a week contracting, and it's just taking a lot out of me. Basically, my day is like spending 8 hours in front of a computer coding. And then it's like when that's done, it's like, do I really want to make a tutorial now and then code that, edit that? So that's kind of like what I've been running into. Don't get me wrong, this YouTube channel is very important to me, and I absolutely need to get back to making videos. I just got to figure out how to do it in the time. So to answer your question, these animation tutorials would probably be pretty in-depth and probably be too time-consuming for where I'm at right now. The good news is my contracting should calm down a bit towards the end of the year. So I should have time for more videos. I'm just in this weird period where I'm on 4 contracts. So as I finish those up and they start dropping off, my time will be open up a little bit so I can get back to the videos. Jay says, do you export PDF for your assets? When I was doing, again, remember now I have designers now that give me all the assets. So lately, yes, because you're supposed to do that now, especially with like the iPhone X with the super high resolution, they recommend that. It's tricky to start doing at first. Again, I don't have a ton of experience with this. I know you can do it in Sketch. In Sketch, you can export like 1x, 2x, 3x assets, as well as like PDFs, SVGs, if you did a vector. So yeah, so Michael Alexander says, I'd like to see some specific whiteboarding questions you'd be asked in an iOS interview. Yep, my iOS interview question. So the iOS interview process is kind of what I'm becoming like known for, which I'm cool with. I like that. So I do want to make sure I flesh out both my iOS interview question video series, as well as like I have the coding challenge series to do on the whiteboard. And to be honest with you, I would like to do somewhere I'm actually like literally on a whiteboard writing it out. I think that'd be pretty cool. However, like I don't have a whiteboard in my apartment, so I don't know where I would do that. But if I can find a place that will let me film and I can do some whiteboarding stuff like that, I think that'd be pretty sweet. David says, can you do a tutorial where you design an app that works on multiple devices? That has been asked a lot about, because that is a pain in the butt. And a lot of times, this is what really sucks, is a lot of times the designer, and I run into this in my contracting literally yesterday, the past couple months, the designer designs it perfectly for the iPhone 7, right? Like the normal iPhone size that like everybody has. got a comment. Yeah, for those of you, like, I do pretty well at responding to all the comments on the YouTube videos, and everybody kind of is like, wow, man, you really do it. But I get notifications, like I get pinged with it all the time. So I got a comment, and most of the time I can just write a quick thank you or a quick, hey, cool, thanks, man. So I do that. But anyway, I got distracted there. So what happens is you get a design built specifically for this phone. Now, as you know, the iPhone SE is a lot skinnier. So if they make their design look great for the 375 point width, but then the iPhone is 320, now you got to make adjustments as the developer. That's a pain in the butt. And then also, like, most of the time they don't give me iPad designs. And yes, you can just stretch out the screen to make it look good on an iPad or to make it fit the iPad, but the design may look like crap with everything just spread out. So you run into that with designers a lot. They design for one screen size. If you do get a designer that will design it for multiple screen sizes for you, like, high five him. He's an awesome designer. Work with him all the time because that's pretty rare from what I've seen. But anyway, yeah, the designing an app for work on multiple devices, that is a pain in the butt. I do have, that is also on my to-do list. Not so much designing the app for that, but actually like adjusting the UI for it. I have some extensions that I use in Structs to help out with that. Kilo says, for people that are in the process of looking for a job, trying to implement these beautifully animated UIs are going to learn great skills that will be useful in your career. Yep, I agree 100%. And kind of like I said during my talk, that will really impress the hell out of your interviewers. It's a trade-off, though. Like, you don't want to, right, if you get a take-home project and it's supposed to take you 3 hours to do, and you're trying to do this animation that takes you 12 hours, don't get me wrong, if you have the time, go for it. I always say that with the take-home projects. If they say, hey, it'll take 3 hours to do, and you put in 12 hours to go way above and beyond, you have an awesome UI, your animations are on point, your code is refactored and architected amazingly, that's just going to blow them away, and you're probably going to be the top candidate. So, yes, I agree. Go above and beyond for sure. Jay says, or how do you get assets from designers, and what format are they? Yeah, so typically it's 1x, 2x, 3x PNGs, typically. But it really depends on the project. Sonka says 60 to 100. Oh, yeah, that's the salary. Yeah, like I said, not to like toot my own horn, but I really impressed my VP of software, and basically just went in there and worked hard. Like, really, I had a great attitude, worked hard. And again, I took on the whole role of designer. Like, I saved them at my initial salary. Like, not only was I doing the development I was supposed to be doing, but I saved them all that money because now I'm the designer. So I was basically doing 2 jobs in one, working hard, doing, in my opinion, I did pretty well at both of them. So I feel like I earned that 100 bump. Like, I don't feel like they just gave it to me. So again, that's just a testament. Like, even if you do have to take a low salary, just know that your salary is not permanent, most likely. I mean, every company's different. And I did have to, I probably would have got that 100 earlier, but as with anything in Silicon Valley, like, you always have to wait till they raise the next round. Like, oh, we're closing our Series A in February, so we'll get it then. And then it got delayed a month. And so sometimes you might have to deal with that in Silicon Valley because, startups are relying on them raising money to be able to pay their employees, to be honest with you. So, yeah. Vareen says, hi, Sean, I'm waiting for an iOS tutorial on core data. Vareen, you're probably not going to get that, just to be honest with you. I've said it time and time again. All the contracts, I've probably done 7 or 8 contracts now. None of them have even like mentioned core data. At the startup I was at, didn't use core data. Even the previous startup of that didn't use core data. And then even in all my interviews, I think of the 30 interviews I went on, probably 2 of the companies use core data. Long story short, at least in the real world, in my market, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, it doesn't get used a ton. So that being said, I've really never used it. So in order for me to do a tutorial on it, I would have to learn it and then make videos for it. And it's for something that I think is not relevant. So everybody keeps asking me about core data tutorials. I'm just probably never going to do one. Sorry, guys. Again, my video to-do list is so long, that's just probably not going to make it. And again, it's because I just feel it's not super relevant, at least in my experience, in all the contracts and all the jobs I've applied for. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying nobody uses it. Certainly people use it, but it's a smaller percentage. Hey, Sean, I'm a senior in high school and learning Swift. That's awesome, first of all. Do you think it's possible I could start contracting at 18? Like I said, first of all, awesome for learning at 18. I didn't start learning until I was 33, so I wish if I did started at 18, I'd be a baller right now. But anyway, not money-wise, but like as a coder. Hey, Sean, I'm a senior in high school, so do you think I could start contracting? I always say it's hard to contract as your very first job because, like I mentioned earlier, when you're the contractor, you're solely responsible for the entire app. And if you don't have experience, like that's a tall order. Like that's a lot to take on. So I always recommend getting an actual job first for a year, 2 years, whatever. And then, again, like I mentioned earlier, during that job, start doing some small projects on the side to get a feel for contracting and to get a feel for it, and then eventually shift over to full-time contracting. Full-time contracting at your very first job, I think, is asking for trouble. Again, nothing is impossible, right? Like, I'm sure people have done that and succeeded. Great. I just think that is the much harder road to take, and you're probably asking for trouble unless you have a great network of developers that can help you out when you get in trouble. Like, if you have a ton of friends or met a ton of contacts that are senior developers that you could go to if you get into a jam, then yeah, sure, you probably could pull it off. But if for the most part you're on your own, it's going to be tough. Rema says, hello, what chair is that? I don't know. It's like $100 like Walmart chair. It's nothing special at all. The only thing I wanted about my chair was like I wanted a headrest. That was my only requirement for a chair. So I like it though, it's pretty good. But it's nothing special at all. I don't even know what brand it is. Bexa says, elementary developer can find a job in Silicon Valley. Anyway, should one be very good at programming for starting in Silicon Valley? Thanks for answering. Like I mentioned, I got a job out of my boot camp, and that's pretty much all I had. I had been learning for like 3 months, and I didn't know anything about development. The truth is about boot camps is when you graduate from a boot camp, you're not going to know much. Like it's just impossible to learn, even if you are doing it 8 hours a day. Mine was 8 weeks. It's just impossible to know a lot about development, right? So, like I said, when I got hired, they took a chance on me. They liked my attitude, my work ethic, my initiative, my drive. And a lot of people say that. They say hire the right people. Like, you can learn development, right? You can't learn to be a hard worker and a great attitude. Like, that's not something you learn. Well, I mean, you can't learn it, but you know what I'm trying to say. Take the better, like, motivated, better attitude, and then know that they'll learn versus taking the superstar developer that's kind of a dickhead. So, long story short, yes, you can get a job in Silicon Valley without much developer knowledge, but you got to be great in the other areas as well. Kilo says about watching your own content. I just wanted to preview the upload to YouTube and ended up watching the whole thing. Yep. So Dark Innocent says, do you always design first in Sketch and then to Xcode? I normally start designing in Xcode using code. What are the advantages of designing in Sketch first? I see a lot of developers follow this practice. Yes, I would say 100% design in Sketch first, and then even within Sketch, do a low fidelity design and then a high fidelity design, which I'll probably talk about when I actually do a design video. But yeah, because I mean, think about it. The time it takes me to like design a screen could be like an hour. The time it takes me to actually build that screen in code could be like 5 hours. So naturally, you want to make sure your designs are on point in Sketch before you take the time to actually code it up. Long story short, you can do either one, but you're going to save yourself a ton of time doing it in Sketch first. Greg says, still made it. Hey, Sean. Hey, Greg. Yeah, but if you're interested in the design stuff, be sure to watch the replay. I'm on the Q&A section now. Bexod says, can you link in below any developer group anywhere you know? I want to join iOS developer group. So like I said, my Patreon community, there's about 30 to 40 of us in there. That's the number of people that are in there. Not everybody's active. But yeah, go to patreon.com/Sean Allen. And yeah, we're talking about development in there all the time. Now, kind of be courteous, like if, yeah, I'll just leave that one be. Soho says, how do you make your portfolio website on SeanAllen.co? I just used a Bootstrap framework. I didn't like use so Twitter Bootstrap is like a HTML, CSS thing. So it is built on Bootstrap, but for the most part, I built it. I mean, it's pretty simple, as you can see, nothing crazy going on. But I didn't use like a theme or an existing Bootstrap thing. I just took the basic Bootstrap framework and then built on top of that my website. And I just host it on GitHub Pages because it's free. Like I said, it's a pretty simple website. That being said, my website, I need to update it. My portfolio is way out of date. Like I've done like 4 contract apps that aren't even up there yet. Again, I just don't have time to like update it. But before I go out for the job hunt in early 2018, I'm going to definitely overhaul the website. I want to put more stuff involving this YouTube channel and some of the YouTube business stuff that I'm doing on the website. So yeah, the website, I mean, hopefully after the first of the year, the website's going to get a complete overhaul before I go on the job hunt. So Ito says, hi, I'm 16 years old and in high school I learned computer science. I know Swift and made a few simple apps. If I make a good app, can I make extra money in the App Store? So making money in the App Store is tough. You know, the App Store gold rush of 2012, 11, 12, whatever, back then is over. It's very hard to make money in the App Store. That being said, I'm not saying it's impossible, just saying that, again, back in like the 2010, 2012 timeframe, like the App Store was like free money. It was a gold rush. Not so much anymore. Very tough. Sanga says, which Mac do you use for screencasting, video, and editing? So I use the 2016 15-inch MacBook Pro with Touch Bar, and then I use OBS for my live streaming, and then video editing is Final Cut Pro. Dark Innocence, what do you do when you can't copy design or an interaction exactly? Does it leave a bad impression on your employer? I actually haven't run into this situation, so I can't really say it. I mean, luckily, I haven't had the task to implement some ridiculous animation, right? All the animations I've had to implement are fairly straightforward and fairly kind of what you see in like apps day to day. So I don't have experience with that. And I would say as long as you communicate with your employer, like, hey, this is an extremely tough animation. It's going to take me a long time. As long as you kind of communicate that, like, I don't think it's going to look poorly on you. However, if you can't do a simple, you know, basic animation, that might look bad on you. But yeah, don't worry if it's a crazy, you know, huge animation. Nat says, so Sean, when applying for entry iOS developer jobs, is good in UX UI design required by the company? I wouldn't say it's required. I would say it's going to be a nice bonus for you. I mean, it all depends on the company, right? If you're the only iOS developer and they don't really have a designer, then you probably have to have some design skills. But if you're going to a team of like 5 developers, they have a whole design team, you know, it's probably not a big deal. But it is a bonus. I think so. Hi, can you make a video on device-to-device push notification with Firebase, please? Make sound on this from your fan. Thanks, appreciate the support. But so Firebase is similar to Core Data for me. I've never used it. So in order for me to make Firebase videos, I would have to take the time to like actually learn it. And the reason I don't use Firebase is because all the contracts and companies I've worked for have their own like back-end web developers, their own custom APIs. You know, cloud storage, all that stuff. So I've never really had to work with Firebase because I've all had the custom stuff. So again, just like Core Data, I'm struggling to find time to make any videos, let alone learn an entire Firebase or an entire Core Data and then make a video on it. That's just it's a tall order. Again, just being transparent with what's going on here. Yolev says, the window is a great whiteboard. Yes, it is. I don't know. So if you've watched my very first ever like vlog about my Facebook interviews, you see I do some filming where I am like literally whiteboarding on I have a huge like window overlooking the bay. So you'll see me like trying to whiteboard on that video, but you can't see, it's hard to see like what I'm writing just because of the way the lighting is and the way the video is. It'd be hard to film like that. But you're right. I literally use my window as a whiteboard, and you can see that in my Facebook vlogs. You know, those are like some of the first videos I ever did. Indra says, are you interested in server-side Swift? Yes, I am interested. I don't know much about it, so I can't speak intelligently on it, but I feel like, I'm glad you asked this. It's kind of a good thing to talk about. So part of, like, I feel like I have design skills. I feel like I can build the client. The only thing I can't do to build an entire app from scratch is like all the back-end server stuff. Again, not relying on Firebase, like actually build my custom back-end. And for that, I'd probably have to learn like JavaScript, or other, I have to learn like a new language. So server-side Swift is super interesting to me if it takes off, right? It's still in its early stages, but if server-side Swift becomes adopted and takes off, then I would absolutely learn that, because to me, that's the final piece of the puzzle for me being a complete one-man show. Rashad says, you should design for the smallest screen possible and give measurements for biggest phone. Yes and no. Most of the time, this is going to work. I agree. However, so by this logic, you can just design for the iPhone 5 and then blow up your design to the iPad. Again, sometimes that will work, but it's going to look, it'll be usable on the iPad, right? Like buttons aren't going to be cut off, but it's not going to look like it's native to the iPad. And it's going to look like a blown up iPhone app on the iPad, which I noticed those right away. And to me, it makes the app, you know, it knocks the app down a peg. It makes me seem like this is not a well-built app because they didn't take the time to design for iPad. So like I said, Rashad, yes, I think this is right a lot of the time, but it's not a 100% rule. Kilo Look says, no whiteboards, iPad Pro with pencil to show your device. Way more fun and portable. Yep. And it'll give me an excuse to use my Apple Pencil, right? Like I bought that like the day it came out, and I rarely use it. What are your thoughts on a CS degree and working without having one? Well, I don't have one, and I'm doing pretty good in my career. I like where I'm at, so you don't have to have one. I will say it absolutely helps to have one. Like, that's, to me, that's no question, right? It absolutely helps. But just because you don't have one, or I'm assuming you don't have one, that's not, you can still succeed in this industry without one. Yeah. Neil says, can you send some screen-specific constraints? It'd be great to see how this is done if possible. Yeah, I have a. If you're in the Patreon community, I have like a list of extensions and structs that I use for every project, and my specific screen size code is in there. This is not just a plug to join the Patreon community so you can get those, but I'm not sure if you're in there, Neil, or not. I know I've seen your name a lot. I don't know if it's between Twitter, here, or what, but yeah, I'll shoot me an email. If the email's on the YouTube channel in the About section, and I'll send those over to you. Rob says, Sean, new to UX UI, I'm using XD. Is that pretty close to Sketch? I've never used, this is the Adobe one, right? I've never used it because I'm just a hardcore Sketch guy. I have heard, though, that XD is basically Adobe's answer to Sketch. So I've never used it, so take this with a grain of salt, but I'm assuming it's pretty close to Sketch because Photoshop is not meant to build UI. Like, right? It's way too cumbersome to be doing that. Whereas Sketch was built specifically for like user interfaces. And I think XD is Adobe's answer to that. So I'd have to play with it, but I would assume they're pretty similar. And if you're using XD, that's probably good too. Best Guy says, what do you think how long Swift can live in the future? I'm talking about React Native. I believe in native development. I've answered this question a ton of times, so sorry if I'm giving you a short answer, Beth Scott. I even did an entire live stream about it. I'm a big believer in native. I do think there's a time and a place for React Native. I'm not bashing React Native, but I do believe if the company has the money, they're going to do native development, right? Because to me, it's just better. But I understand why people use React Native because you may not have enough money for an iOS developer and an Android developer, or maintaining two code bases may be too much for you. So I get the use case, and I'm not bashing it. But if you have the money and you have the resources, native is better. Wilfred, how many times per week do you go play basketball, and how many minutes and hours per session? So I'm actually currently injured at the moment. I have tendonitis in my shooting elbow. Like when I go like that, it like hurts. So I haven't played in a week and a half, but my normal schedule is about 4 times a week and probably about 2 to 3 hours each time. So I play a lot. Do you have any tips for someone who new to programming and Swift in particular? It's a pretty big question. But yeah, the tips are just keep at it. Do a ton of YouTube channels. There's so many YouTube tutorials out there. Just keep at it and find a mentor. Find somebody that's ahead of you in their learning that they can help you get over humps. Because that's why people quit. They run into a roadblock and then they just get frustrated and they say, screw it, I'm done. That's like the #1 reason why people quit. If you have people that can help you get past those roadblocks, then that's great for you, and that's going to be more likely for you to continue down this path and succeed. And the last one is be patient. Like, it's a long journey. You're not going to become a great developer in 4 months, right? It's going to take years. So just keep that in mind, be patient, and then have somebody to help you get past the roadblocks, and you'll be good. Brian's about to release a series on core data. I believe people are, yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it'll be a great series. So go there for your core data needs. Yeah, core data is great, a little hard at first, but has lots of features. Brian, yep, there you go. You guys are saying the same thing. Can you hook me up with a Silicon Valley job? Actually, I have no connections for a job. I've been for the past year, I've been independent contracting, and the company I work with is out of Dallas, and then the other small startup is out of Pennsylvania. So it's like, really, I have no, connection in Silicon Valley right now. There's no reason for me to even be living here, aside from the fact that I know this contracting is temporary, and I'm going to be, looking for a job here soon. But yeah, so at the moment, I don't really have any hookups. Sketch versus Paint Code, they're two different programs, in my opinion. Paint Code will actually, you just put in an image, and I haven't used Paint Code in a while, so maybe it's changed, but you kind of put in an image, and it spits out the UI Bezier path to, actually draw that in the app. Whereas Sketch is, you're actually, designing your app. You're not just taking an image. So I would say they're two different programs, essentially, and you would kind of use them in conjunction with each other. They complement each other, I guess is the word I was looking for. Do you use CocoaPod daily in your projects? Do you install the pods through Terminal? Yes, I install them through Terminal, and yes, I use them daily. I don't, so my whole take on CocoaPods is use them sparingly. Don't put 20 CocoaPods in your project for the smallest little thing. I use them. I probably use about 4 to 5. Like Alamo Fire is always one. SV Progress HUD I use a lot, which is like an activity indicator. Those are like the 2 I use the most. Other than that, it's project specific. But again, it's only a small handful. It's not a ton. With React Native working so great, how do you see iOS? I just answered that question. If you just joined, sorry, I watched the replay. Like literally just 3 minutes ago, I answered that. What design pattern do you use? MVC, MVVM, or MVP? I use MVC just because it's tried and true. It's what I know. And again, in contracting, you're under tight timelines a lot, so I know I can knock it out real quick. I have messed with MVVM a little bit, but not enough to like really speak intelligently on it. Keo says, thanks for the answer. Any advice for finding first iOS jobs at 18? It depends on your location. Sorry, it's hard to give an answer. Obviously, if you're in Silicon Valley, I can give you a great answer. I don't know your market unless you're in Silicon Valley. Do you actually use unified modeling language? Don't even know what that is. Before coding, like context diagram. Oh, okay, no, I've seen this before. No, I don't. I do. Again, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I use what's it called? Like low fidelity wireframes and then right into high fidelity wireframes. I know what you're talking about, like a flow of the app, kind of like a flow chart, maybe is a good word for it. I don't really use that. I kind of just, well, Sketch, it turns into, if you've seen Sketch before, you have a bunch of different screens, like iPhone screens in your Sketch file, and that kind of turns into a flow chart if you do it right. So that kind of takes that. And then again, just low fidelity, which is just the basic layout of how the screen should look, and then high fidelity, which is like the final pixel perfect screen. Indra says, Katura Vapor, perfect. What will you choose? Or maybe use other technology like Node.js. Yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to wait to learn backend to see. I'm waiting to see if Swift server takes off. If it does, I don't know which one I'll use. I haven't looked into it enough, to be honest with you. Kind of waiting to see what happens. Neil says, your plug worked. I'm in. Haha, I will sign up after the stream. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I think the main value of that depends on what tier you buy, but the main value of that is the Slack channel. A lot of good people in there helping each other out. Good conversations too. Yoel says, currently writing a project at work with perfect server-side Swift. Looks promising. Also, the community around it is great. Yeah, I'm excited about server-side Swift. I just don't think it's there yet. I really hope it does get there, and by there I mean like adopted and commonly used. I really hope it does. Hey there, I'm just starting to learn iOS stuff from the Android world. Welcome to the other side. All right, looks like I'm getting down to the end of the questions. I'll probably go for like another minute or two. If you have any last-second questions, keep them quick. Don't ask like a super long one. But if you have any quick questions, go ahead and get them in now. By the time I hit the list, I'll probably sign off. I hit the end of the list, I'll sign off. Do you use Realm? Never heard you talk about it. I don't use Realm. It's kind of funny. Like the Realm offices are, probably like a 20-minute walk from my apartment, and Realm offices host meetups all the time, like every month. So I've been to the Realm offices 20 times, but I've never actually used it. It's kind of funny. But I do think people prefer a lot of what I hear anyway, because again, I don't have firsthand experience, but a lot of what I hear is people prefer Realm to Core Data. Like they like using that more than Core Data, and that's kind of their what they use more so than Core Data here in Silicon Valley. Bola says, hello, could you teach a lesson digital pulsing Swift tutorial? Please, from Baker. I have no idea what that is. Sorry. Baker framework? Yeah, I haven't heard of that. It's kind of confusing to learn a new language. I'm always comparing doing stuff to Java versus Swift. Yeah, I see that, but I don't know, maybe you can tell me. I think it would help at least having a base in programming to learn, rather than like learning a programming language from scratch, because that's what I did with Swift. Like I had to learn programming in general, let alone like all the Swift stuff. Whereas if I think, for example, I'm a Swift developer, if I learn Java, I think it would be much easier going from language to language than starting from scratch, even though there may be some confusing parts, like you said. Zolt says, do you happen to know how many entries I can save in Core Data? Are you guys trolling me at this point? Again, I don't use Core Data. I don't know anything about it. Like I say, it's not very commonly used here in Silicon Valley. So yeah, sorry, I don't. Any Core Data questions, like I'm not going to know. Never used it. So by the way, thank you for your awesome videos. They saved me, saved my bottom a few times. Great, glad to hear it helped, Zolt. Appreciate the support. Sanka says, upgraded to iOS 11.03 and now I can't run my apps on my iPhone. How to fix? Don't know. Haven't done the update yet. So Now I probably won't do the update now that you said that. So sorry, I can't help you there. Which DBs have you used so far? So like I said, I work with a lot of like professional backend web developers, so they handle all that. Like I don't have to mess with that. Literally, like what I get is I get API documentation, and it's like well documented APIs. Like here's the API you need, or here's the endpoint you need to hit. Here's the response you're going to get back. Here's my expected parameters. Make it happen. So in that way, I'm pretty lucky. Like that's how I deal with databases. I don't have to build a database on my own. So any database or backend web development questions, like I just don't have enough experience with it to talk about without sounding like an idiot. Go have a great day. Thanks, man. Rasmus, if App Store Gold Rush is over, why do people use apps? I guess you probably missed what I meant by App Store Gold Rush is back in the day, you could put any single app up there for 99 cents and people were buying it. I guess the point is back in the day, when the App Store first came out, people were willing to spend money on apps. That has shifted. People don't spend money on apps anymore. It's kind of crazy. So, you buy a $1,000 phone, but, spending $1 for an app is like, whoa, no way. I don't know, interesting. So that's what I meant by the Gold Rush is over, meaning that you could put pretty much anything on the App Store and make money. That's what I meant by the Gold Rush is over. Neil Williams says, dude, awesome stream as always. Have a great day. Thank you for taking time to do these. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for always showing up. I appreciate all the support. Wolfer says, how do you deal with your social life while maintaining YouTube channel for basketball? Yeah, I don't. I don't maintain my social life. So during basketball season, I through these 4 basketball sessions, I have a lot of basketball friends, we'll call them. So during basketball season, we'll go out all the time and watch like Warriors games and stuff like that. But for the most part, yeah, the social life takes a hit because of all this. But those are sacrifices, I'm willing to make. I have big plans for this YouTube channel. Not so much to like have 1 million subs and do this full time. I think it's interesting to do it full time, but the YouTube channel is building my brand within the Swift community, and it's opening doors and providing opportunities that I probably would have never gotten had I not had a YouTube channel with a decent following. I'm only at like 7,000 subscribers now, but I'm projecting 2 years in the future, like the doors that will open up. So that's kind of the mindset I'm having. I'm sacrificing a little bit of the social life kind of for many opportunities in the future. And I consider the basketball sessions like social. Like that's, like I said, there's a group of like 50 to 100 guys that play, not all at once, right? It's just the total pool. So it's like that, to me, that is going out and hanging out with my friends, playing basketball 3 hours, 4 times a week. And like, I know all those guys, like we're cool. I've been playing with them for 3 years. So to me, this is my social life. Like that is going out and hanging out with friends. Zolt says, there are no limitations on entries. Cool. Thanks for answering the core data question. Thanks a lot, Jay. Thanks for coming. Thanks, guys. Kilo says, hit me up when you have time for server-side Swift. I'll get you up and running like a half hour with Vapor. Yeah, I will. As I've talked to you on Twitter, the timing, I don't have time for much right now. But when I do, I will definitely do it up. Yeah, check out Kilo's channel if you guys haven't yet. Like I said, I want to start checking out some of the videos. I don't even have time to watch my own content. Forrest Knight, yeah, we got to talk too, Forrest. Came in late. What is your alternative to core data and Realm? So like I mentioned, I just use like custom, yeah, Socket answers it. I work with a lot of custom backend web developers. I just get an API to use. Any new contracts coming? Hey, Todd. No. So the 4 contracts I have right now are enough to last me well past the end of the year. I really have to make the decision. I have to start winding down on these contracts because, like I've mentioned, early 2018, I'm going back out on the job hunt to all the major companies here in Silicon Valley: Apple, Facebook, Lyft, Coinbase, big one. So I do need to start winding down these contracts in preparation for going out on the job search again. So that's kind of where I'm at with contracting. Hey, Sean, what is your strategy for API responses? Do you use encodable and decodable all the time? No, so I haven't, because my contracts were already like in work before the Swift 4 stuff came out. I haven't jumped on the codable protocol yet. I need to though. I want to because I heard that makes the JSON very, very easy. So I'm not there yet, but I do need to get there. All right, last question. Then I got to head out. We're already past an hour. With web APIs, do you cache any data locally? This depends. Yeah, I mean, yes is the answer sometimes. Especially when you're downloading like images in a table view. I'll cache those images temporarily and then it'll clear the cache. So it really depends on the situation. But yes, it does happen. Hey, Max Speed, good to see you in here. I am just actually signing off. So sorry for the late entry, but I did just say I'm just wrapping it up. So good to see you though. Yep, cryptos. Well, Silicon Valley right now, that's all you hear about right there. It's dominating Silicon Valley. So anyway, thanks guys for showing up. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know what kind of video I'm going to do next week. I haven't figured it out yet. But we'll be back next week, and then hope this week there will be some videos. I know I kind of didn't do any videos this past week, but this week there will absolutely be at least one because I have to. I just have to do these videos. All right, guys. See ya.